Imagine this. A woman wakes up next to a man who calls himself her husband, but she can't seem to remember it. Affection is a 2026 sci-fi horror film. Let's break it down. We open on a woman lying in the middle of a dark road, badly injured, beside an abandoned car with its headlights still on and the engine running. Her name is Ellie. She gasps awake, drags herself up despite a dislocated ankle, and immediately collapses into a seizure. When it is over, she forces herself up again, and headlights appear down the road. She runs. The car does not slow down. It drives straight at her and hits her on purpose. Cut to the same woman waking up in a comfortable bed beside a sleeping stranger. She slips out quietly, explores the unfamiliar house, and recognizes absolutely nothing. A man named Bruce finds her and gently calls her honey. She demands to know who he is and where she is, insisting people will be looking for her. When he tries to calm her down, she grabs a fire poker and strikes him across the face, shattering a mirror in the process. A little girl named Alice runs in calling her mommy. The woman asks desperately where her husband is. Where is her son? Bruce tells her that he is her husband and Alice is their daughter. There was an accident. But Ellie is confused. She does not accept any of it. She accuses him of drugging her. Bruce picks up a shard of the broken mirror and holds it up so she can see her own face. It does not match the person she feels she is on the inside. He tells her she's having a memory lapse from her condition. She breaks down. This time, when he comes toward her, she does not push him away. She just weeps and begs him to help her because something is deeply wrong. Alice comes to comfort her too. That night, Bruce reads Alice the story of the 3 little pigs. She asks if her mother still loves her, still misses the way she used to be. Bruce reassures her. The next morning, he explains Ellie's condition in careful, measured language. They have seen the best neurological specialists available. In rare cases after a traumatic accident, the brain pulls fragments from things a person has encountered, a TV show, a story, a stranger, and weaves them into false memories, so convincing they feel more real than reality. That is what is happening to her, he says. The other life she remembers is not hers. She does not believe him. She speaks slowly, deliberately. Her name is Sarah Thompson. She grew up in Maine. She has a computer science degree from Columbia, a husband, a son. She does not just feel these things, she remembers them down to details you could not simply invent. She asks to make a phone call, to leave. Bruce tells her recovery requires isolation, no neighbors, no phone service. They decided this together. She just needs time to rebuild the connection to her real memories. She agrees. After a while, Alice and Bruce are playing. Alice notices that Bruce's hair is getting grayer now. He says that happens when people get old. Meanwhile, Ellie is taking a shower. She notices a scar on her back she does not remember having. Ellie goes through the old photos on the walls. Bruce asks if she remembers any. She says no. He tells her that they are her parents, Joe and Eva. She asks if she was close with them. He says yes, and that they passed away. Ellie watches home videos. It shows a woman who looks exactly like her, laughing, touching his face, holding Alice. Watching it makes her feel like she is living the life of someone else. That day, while Bruce is working on the car, Alice is in the back and radios Bruce, saying that the Mr. Bunny is getting bored. He says he's almost done. Hearing this, Ellie goes to Alice and asks what she's drawing. Alice says, "Me, Mr. Bunny, you, and Daddy." Ellie apologizes to her for what happened the night before. Alice says it's okay, sometimes you have trouble remembering. Back at the house, Ellie asks Bruce directly what is going to happen to her when her real memories return. She asks if she will disappear. She remembers being pregnant, but with a son, another husband, other parents, an entire other childhood. Bruce says those memories will fade naturally. It's part of the recovery. She presses harder. What happens to this version of her once those memories go away? Bruce says she will simply be Ellie, his wife, Alice's mother. He plays a record, says it's their song, and tells her about their sophomore year, the homecoming dance, and the warmth of her hand on his neck, the courage it took to kiss her for the first time. He says he knew right then he would love her for the rest of his life. That night, Alice wakes up screaming. She says a monster was trying to get her. It looked like her, but it wasn't her. Ellie connects with the words, but says nothing. Bruce comforts Alice, hands her a torch, and tells her that monsters are afraid of bright light. Ellie's hand trembles. Over the following days, she spends more time with Alice, blowing soap bubbles in the yard, Alice winning the bubble competition. Her prize is a trip to the zoo with Grandpa Joe. Ellie freezes, but Joe is supposed to be dead. She asks when Alice last spoke to him. Just a week ago, Alice says. Ellie talked with him too. Ellie has no memory of it whatsoever. Her hand starts shaking again. Sensing her mother's distress, Alice suggests a game of hot and cold out in the fields. Alice runs off to hide. Ellie counts. She follows her voice through the woods and ends up being far from the house. She finds something she was never meant to see. Something lying beneath a plastic sheet, groaning, clearly in distress. She approaches slowly. A human hand tears through the plastic. She stumbles backward in terror as the figure beneath begins crawling toward her. She scrambles to her feet and runs, screaming for Alice, until they find each other and sprint back to the house together. Bruce tells her he searched everywhere and found nothing. Maybe a hunting accident. Ellie insists something is out there. He calms her down and says he will go check with the authorities and alert them. He tells her to stay inside and lock the door. That night, while doing Alice's hair, she notices an identical scar on her back. Alice says it just appeared one day. She doesn't know when. Whatever is happening in this house, it has marked both of them the same way. The next morning, Ellie insists they search again. Bruce says he's already searched twice and spoken to the authorities. There's no phone signal out here, but they'll come if something turns up. She isn't satisfied. The argument escalates until Bruce snaps and says she must have had a stress hallucination. She fires back that it wasn't. Her body gives out entirely. A full seizure drops her right where she stands. She looks up at him and asks, "What is happening to me?" She wakes to find Alice crying over her, begging her not to go away again, not to forget her. Ellie holds her, says she's trying so hard to remember. Then the seizures return, mid-conversation. Alice stays brave through it, suggests a girls' day, promises to bring Mr. Bunny to help. Meanwhile, Bruce sits alone in the garage, head in his hands, before hurling a chair across the room in frustration. Back in the house, the seizures settle. Ellie reads a sweet note from Alice, then collapses again. Bruce helps her into a chair as it passes. He pleads with her, try to remember anything at all from their life together. She cannot recall a single moment. His desperation builds and builds until something in him breaks completely. He grabs her by the throat and starts to choke her. Alice bursts in, screaming for him to stop. He shouts at her to go to her room and lock the door. Mommy has a monster inside her. Ellie seizes the moment, grabs one of Alice's color pencils, and drives it into Bruce's chest. She breaks free and runs into the cornfield. Bruce chases her, calling her name behind her. Disoriented, she spots him searching for her, creeps up behind him, and knocks him to the ground with a sharp blow to the head. She finds a separate building on the property, a barn she's never been inside. Equipment, screens, recording devices, a tape with a note. Play me. The tape shows Bruce, not in the present, but as he was years earlier. He speaks about his own body in the third person. He describes it as a synthetic life form, built from his own biological DNA, and the first of its kind. He explains why. His wife and daughter had an accident. They are not dead. He built the technology to bring them back himself. Their identities were digitized and stored, but lost among thousands of other consciousness files in a master database. Each file has to be implanted into a host body and observed over time to confirm the correct match. It is not a perfect science. Assimilation can take days or weeks. He has to be completely sure before he commits, because Alice needs her mother. Ellie watches in absolute horror. She plays a second tape labeled Side Effects. A different woman appears on screen, looks just like her, screaming that her name is not Ellie Carter. It is Molly Evans. She does not know any of these people. She is begging to be let out. She is convulsing. Bruce, on the tape, sits her down and tells her that if she does not accept being Ellie Carter, she will deteriorate into total identity rejection and eventually become nothing but pure survival instinct. She is not the first woman this has happened to. The recording continues. Locating Ellie's actual consciousness in the database has so far failed. When an implanted consciousness fails to bind with the embedded DNA, the result is total identity rejection, the body rejecting it like a transplanted organ. It starts small, tremors in the hands. Once full seizures begin, there's no coming back. The subject becomes violent, stronger, heals faster, unpredictable. At that point, the subject must be terminated. By now, Bruce is standing right behind her in the present. Before Ellie can react, he swings a pipe at her, again and again, until she's gone. He buries her in the cornfield and cleans up every trace of the struggle. He checks on Alice's monitor, a look of raw grief on his face. He goes to her room and tells her mommy is resting. He will never let the monster get inside her. He holds her with a gentleness that has gone somewhere wrong, whispering that all the bad memories are going to disappear. She struggles, cries out for help. He is resetting her, too. Back in the barn, he logs into the database. Subject identified herself as Sarah Thompson, not Ellie. Alice was compromised. Termination of both subjects was unavoidable. He moves into an adjoining room, where a throbbing mass of organic matter sits inside a cryochamber. He transfers it onto a gestation table, radiating warm light, and feeds both Alice's and Ellie's data into the system. Alice's file transfers successfully. Ellie's does not. It remains unknown, lost somewhere in the database, the same search he has run countless times before. He leaves the machine running and walks out into the cornfield alone, letting out a raw, broken sound into the night. Everything has finally caught up with him. Out in the field where Bruce buried previous Ellie, she surfaces from the ground. Back in the barn, the organic mass begins to grow. Bruce, inside, is updating his consciousness records, unaware she's stalking him in the dark. He briefly returns to the house and plays an old video, the real Ellie, before any of this, singing with a young Alice, telling the camera she loves Bruce more than anything and misses him terribly. At the same time, the injured Ellie is in the barn. Severely disfigured and barely functional, she manages to overwrite her own consciousness directly into the new Ellie's file, which Bruce has programmed to emerge from the gestation chamber, then disappears, leaving no trace of what she's done. When the timer goes off, Bruce returns to the lab to complete the consciousness file upload, completely unaware that the file has already been overwritten. He finds the new Ellie ready in the chamber, washes and dresses her, slides their wedding ring onto her finger, and carries her back into the house. He does the same for the new Alice, a small jolt to start her breathing, then back to sleep. He lies down beside the new Ellie. She wakes and plays along perfectly, pretending to be the woman he's been waiting for. He is overjoyed. Years of waiting have finally paid off. Or so he believes. They become intimate. Outside, somewhere in the dark, the disfigured Ellie is still convulsing through the night, alive and alone. Bruce returns to the barn and logs his final entry, quietly, like a man who has carried something unbearable for far too long. So many years have passed. The things he did to save them are memories he will never escape. He never gave up on them. And now he is giving himself a gift, a version of himself that will never know how many times his heart broke. The new Ellie gets up, checks on Alice, then goes to the garage. She takes a hammer, a matchbox, and a highly flammable pesticide canister, then heads straight for the barn. Bruce discovers the file overwrite and realizes immediately what the previous Ellie did. The injured Ellie makes her way to the house. When Alice sees the woman's disfigured face, she runs out screaming. Meanwhile, the new Ellie enters the barn, sees the organic mass heaving in the lab, and is overwhelmed with confusion and rage. She begins spraying the equipment. Bruce confronts her. What was he supposed to do, knowing he could save them? She tells him to grieve like everyone else does. She used to be a person with a life. Now she is neither his wife nor the person she once was, just something he created. She begs him to let Ellie go. He says he never will and advances on her. She sprays him with pesticide. He hits her with his fully charged zapper. She manages to shove him down and reach for the matches, just before the zapper's effects take hold, dropping her completely motionless. Bruce carries her unconscious body out to the cornfield and starts digging a pit. As he digs, he tells himself, you never give up on the people you love. You do whatever it takes. Alice, wandering the field separately, tries to reach Bruce on her walkie-talkie, unaware his radio is sitting uselessly back in the car. The injured Ellie also moves through the cornfield, trailing her. At the pit, the unconscious Ellie's fingers begin to twitch as the zapper wears off. Bruce finishes digging and reaches for her wedding ring, and she's already awake, eyes fixed on something behind him, frozen in fear. He turns. The injured Ellie is standing there. She shoves him hard, and both of them tumble into the pit together. The new Ellie watches, stunned. Bruce's hand shoots up out of the pit, grabbing for her. The injured Ellie pulls him back down. The new Ellie seizes the moment, sprays Bruce with pesticide, and strikes a match. Fire takes hold instantly, consuming both Bruce and the previous Ellie together. Alice finds the new Ellie in the field and runs straight into her arms. She holds her close, tells her they're going for a long ride, away from all of it. Together, they walk away, leaving everything behind. Back in the barn, a separate timer Bruce had set long in advance quietly triggers another regeneration cycle. The computer connects a new consciousness file to a new host. Inside the gestation table, a brand new Ellie begins to stir, fighting through the amniotic casing, gasping, covered in fluid. She wraps Bruce's jacket around herself and looks around the barn, trying to understand where she is. The film ends with her stepping outside and quietly calling her husband's name, Bruce. Affection spends its first half pretending to be a domestic memory loss drama, and its second half revealing it was a science fiction body horror film the entire time. And B.T. Meza, directing his feature debut, manages that genre shift more gracefully than the premise has any right to expect. The setup borrows heavily and obviously from familiar amnesia thriller territory, and most viewers will see exactly where this is going well before the reveal arrives. That predictability is the film's biggest weakness. What keeps it watchable is the atmospheric world Meza builds around that predictable framework. Jessica Rothe is doing the heavy lifting here, and she is genuinely excellent. To play a character who has to be simultaneously a wife who is not herself, a stranger trapped in someone else's life, and eventually multiple synthetic iterations fighting for the same identity, it requires a level of physical and emotional control that Rothe delivers completely. The seizure sequences alone, convincing, exhausting, never overplayed for shock, carry an enormous amount of the film's tension. Joseph Cross as Bruce makes a difficult choice work. He plays the loving husband so sincerely in the first half that his later reveal as someone who has hurt and reset multiple women lands as tragedy rather than simple villainy. Julianna Layne as Alice is doing remarkable work for a child performer, carrying real emotional weight in scenes that ask a lot of her. The film's practical effects are a genuine highlight. The facial trauma and body horror imagery in the back half are creative and effective without leaning on excessive gore for its own sake. Where it stumbles is pacing. The first half drags in a way that feels deliberate, but goes on slightly too long before the genre pivot finally arrives, and the climax piles on more revelations and regenerations than the story strictly needs. The ending, a brand new Ellie emerging, calling out for a husband who is already dead, plays as an intentional, tragic gut punch rather than a cheap sequel tease, and mostly earns that haunting cyclical ambiguity. Mostly. What elevates affection above a simple twist-driven horror exercise is its actual subject. This is a film about grief curdling into something monstrous, about a man who could not accept loss and built an entire system to avoid ever having to. The tragedy is that his solution required erasing the very people he claimed to be saving. That moral complexity, even inside a story so reliant on typical horror tropes, is what makes the back half worth the patience the front half demands. Overall, I would give it a 7.2 over 10 rating. A familiar setup that earns its genre swerve through real performances and a genuinely tragic, cyclical loop of grief underneath all the body horror. That's affection. If this is your kind of content, like, subscribe, and join me, one story at a time. See you on the next one.